Good morning, Pilot Mound Hockey Academy fans, to the Buffaloes podcast for Ep.4, Season 2 here, brought to you by Goaltenders, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terraco and Can Central Sports Cards, and Memorabilia. Our apologies for getting going almost an hour later this morning. We're having a bunch of technical difficulties, unfortunately. Gotta love it, but yeah, we're live for this show now for Ep.4, Season 2. Episode 5, of course, will be airing at its scheduled time at 8 a.m. next week, but only one guest on for this week's episode, and it's Gordie Tumilson, the goalie coach, marketing director, and head of recruiting at Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. He goes into, at the start of it, about how he's taken on a bit of a different look to his goaltending role at Pilot Mound this season. He speaks about Colin Fafra, also about his U15s, Colin's U15s, and how they fared this past weekend in their lone game, as well as talking about the U18 female prep Buffaloes, as well as the U17 prep Buffaloes games from the past weekend and their upcoming games, as well as, we might touch on the U18 male squad side of things, as they're not in action this week, but will be next week. That's all to come here on G Show Productions edition of the Buffaloes podcast, Pilot Mound Hockey Academy's official podcast here on the network. Gordie Tumilson coming up next. As always, we're going to be talking about the past weekend for the teams that were in action, as well as highlighting some of the upcoming stuff. But more of that will be broken down in next week's episode. Gordie, just got to ask you to start off, how have things been as this season continues to pick up?
Well, we've been busy. My role, of course, has changed a little bit. Personally, I'm not going out to Pilot Mound any longer. Colin Fafra is our sort of in-house goalie coach, as well as the head coach of the U15. So his time is busy as well. He's working with a full team of players, of course, and then he's got the goalies as an extra thing. And Tuesdays when we do this little video thing to prepare for Wednesday morning delivery. Colin gets very busy with, I think he has all four practices that day, as well as a goalie meeting. And pretty soon he'll have the goalie ice session to follow the goalie meeting. So we call it Goalie Tuesdays, and it is a busy day for all of our goalies and Colin. And but my change has been to video, talking to the kids, texting them out, watching every game. I'll watch 200 plus hockey games this year with these guys and gals, and so that'll be fun. And I'll know them pretty well, all the nuances and all that good stuff. So, yep, it's been busy, and it's gonna get busier.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And awesome to hear Colin's taking on a bigger role this year. Great for you, Gordie, to save yourself a bit of that stress and not being around the rink as much, even though I know you love being around at the end of the day as a hockey guy, being around the hockey action. But we'll start off with the U17s, Gordie, going into the scores now. They end off winning big against Star Hockey Academy in Abbotsford, BC. Dropping the first two games of their weekend against St. George's and Shawnigan Lake. But yeah, take me through the past weekend for the U17s.
Yeah, the kids are learning and getting better. They got a win out of the on the third game, which is a great thing. Came close in one of the other games and got kind of bit thumped in another one. So at the end of the day, that's okay. We're learning, they're getting better, and you can see it. Even a month into the season, the players are starting to do things better, whatever that may mean. Make better passes, keep their head up, do head checks, do all those things that they sometimes don't do back at home when they're playing on their regular teams in the past, because maybe they're the better players at home, and of course all their little skills don't get used quite as much, and then they show up at a place like us, and then we're playing against pretty good competition, and all their skills now have got to be brought out, and that's happening. So for all of our teams, I'll say this again, they get better month to month, and so even just on the weekend playing the Stars team, we really played solid on the third game, and
Yeah.
good for our guys to do that. So yeah, it was a good weekend.
Yeah, it's always fun to win, right? And to win 7-1, a huge one. But for this U17 team, another huge bounce back after, losing the day before. It's kind of been, like mentioned before, a story for this team. But I guess who stood out most notably for this team, or one area of this team most notably this season, that is something that, viewers who tune in are going to want to keep an eye on this U17 squad?
Well, there's they've got a great bunch of kids there, and I'm just clicking down to make sure I get the names correct and all that good stuff. But um, uh, we've got Jack Adams has played really well for us, forward from Florida, his second year guy. Jack Perry is playing really well for us as well, in terms of getting some points, etc. And excuse my turning my head here, just I want to be
Oh, no
sure I get it
worries.
right here. Yeah, Gavin Noseworthy's coming along nicely, a kid from Thompson, Manitoba, number 96. He's played well. There's a couple of other kids. Clemens Pfeiffer has been hurt a little bit, but he's played some better games. And Griffin McGinty is coming along, the second McGinty boy from Denver, Colorado. He's played better, and so yep, we're getting there. It's an interesting process. Brody Wentink has been noticeable as well. Number 43, it's his second year, and you can just see how much better and more confident he is today than he was last year.
Yeah, no, no, for sure. And I think that's huge, having that extra year under your belt, right? Of playing at this type of level and now coming in with more confidence, more experience. Brody, as well as the other attorneys, looking to make their mark this season for the U17s. But moving on to, I guess, their upcoming games, they'll be playing against Rink Hockey Academy, Winnipeg at home at Blackjack Stewart Arena on the 11th. And then taking off to Yorkton, Saskatchewan to take on the Sask East Oilers in a two-game weekend stint. The upcoming games, obviously, RHA Winnipeg is always a huge test for any team in the academy, and the Sask East Oilers team shouldn't be too bad. You'd assume they give them some competitive games for sure, but upcoming for Pilot Mound, what's the outlook of these upcoming opponents?
Well, that game on Friday night, of course, is a league game and CSSHL league game, and so and the rank, of course, comes in, and they're always they're always really good, and so we expect our guys to learn an awful lot about where the bar is set, in Manitoba for the best teams. The rink's going to be part of that high bar solution, and so measure yourself against the guy across from you and see how well you do on every shift and every play. As far as the other two games are in Yorkton, that's AAA teams out of eastern Saskatchewan, and they'll be good. Saskatchewan kids are always good. They're big, they're tough. They're a lot of farm boys there. They're big, strong guys, and they like to hit and play the body and all that good stuff. And that should still be the case. So again, two good tests for our U17 guys to play in, and looking forward to both those two games. This is the new two new team or a new team that we're playing against. So we haven't played these guys before, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's cool. It's always fun to play against new competition, some familiar competition though coming to Blackjack Stewart Arena on the 11th. You can catch that game on Flow Hockey. Of course, the home of CSSHL coverage, but moving on to the U15s, Gordie. Speaking of Rink Hockey Academy, Pilot Mountain, the U15s played against them at the Rink Training Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba this past Friday, and ended up winning that one by a score of 5-4. Hard fought, it looked like, by the score, and this U15 team coming away with early season bragging rights within the province. Must feel pretty good to see that. I mean, we talk about how the wins aren't the most important thing, but when it comes to beating RHA, I know how much pride Pilot Mountain takes in that.
Well, everybody likes to beat everybody, and when you've got these, provincial rivalry type things, it's perfect. And so we don't have many provincial rivalries because of the nature of our league against the AAA program. But the Rinks are guys, and they beat us pretty badly last year, every game. And I know Coach Colin Fafra was bouncing off walls like the kids were after the game that we beat them. Now you got to say this: the rink does set the bar again here. They outshot us 60-40. And so they showed our guys what the CSSHL competition looked like. We hadn't these most of these kids had never played this level of hockey, And so the ones that had knew what to expect. The new guys, about 15 of them, oh my gosh, it was going. And our little goalie, Yuki Kido from Japan, was our starter and finished the game. It was 3-0 after the end of the first period for RHA. And he, commented after the game to me, and we knew what was going to happen. But he said, "Yeah, I figured out the pace in the second period, so because it was really fast in the first." But yeah, we prevailed. The kids just battled like crazy, and we got a 5-4 win. So timely goals from Ramage and Landerville and those guys, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it was a great game. I was there in person, so nice to watch.
Yeah, Cole Landerville coming up huge for this team with a 2 goal night. Ramage, as you mentioned, with 1 goal in that game. And Brock Vauden, a goal and 2 assists in that one for a
Yep.
3 point night. But you mentioned the pace, right? And getting used to that, it could be tough early on in the season. But to know that this team was down 3-0 against a good RHA team that outshot Pilot Mountain, for this team to stay with it, stick in it, adjust to that pace, and fight back in this game, I feel like that says a lot about the type of heart this team has.
Well, that goes two ways. Number one, the heart on our team was immense. I mean, for those kids to bear down and catch up, get a goal, another goal. They tied it 3-3. We went ahead 4-3, and right towards the end of the game, and they scored, and we scored, and won the hockey game. But so our kids just gutted it out, and Yuki was he was magnificent in goal. He was everywhere, stopping everything. So we had a great moment after the game and whatnot. He and I for a bit, but it also showed a little bit of a frustration on the RHA club. I think they thought, well, 3-0 at the end of the first period. This is going to be a 10-0 game, and we're just going to keep pounding away at these guys. And I think I don't know this for sure, but I think they took their foot off the pedal just a little bit and then couldn't regain their focus. And I'm sure their coaches had a word with them after the end of the game. But our guys are full marks for that win. They battled like we haven't seen a team battle like this in a long time out of this U15 program. And we were really proud of those kids. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, and look, it seems like it's happened in sports forever, where a team could maybe let their foot off the gas and get a bit too comfortable, and you got to take advantage of that when you're the opposition. Sure, you could talk about how, yeah, RHA let this one fall into Pilot Mountain's hands, but Pilot Mountain saw the opportunity, took it and ran with it, or skated with it in this instance, Gordy.
Mhm.
And huge marks, huge win for this U15 team to build the spirits positively to start things off. They'll be back in action coming up this weekend on the 4th against OHA Edmonton, going up against Northern Alberta Extreme and Edge School. Assuming this is the start of CSSHL play for them, Gordy, huge weekend coming up for the U15 Buffs.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's a big weekend. They're going to play some tough games, and that's great. That's what they're there for. Actually, we're playing this. This is on the 12th. The U15s are playing at home, yeah, against the rink again. I think you maybe have jumped a week on me, yeah, I think, but I'm not sure.
No, I'm
Uh,
looking games on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and then they got ones coming up on the 12th, the
oh
16th.
yeah, you're right. I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm a week ahead. You're right. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Oh, it's all good.
I've been plugging in my schedules for the next 2 weeks, and I got ahead of things. Yes, yeah, this is a huge weekend for our kids in the U15s. They're going to find out ooh, what Alberta hockey's all about, and it's pretty good. So
Yeah.
and that's okay. You know what? That's why they're here. They got to raise their level of the game if they can. And if they can't, well, guess what? There's a different career path for you somewhere down the road. For the kids that can handle this and figure it out and work it, and that's what all the coaches say. That players have got to figure it out. Well, always playing against somebody better, and if you're playing against somebody better, figure out how to stop that guy, figure out how to beat that guy. And it goes for every player on the ice, the coaching staff, everybody. So yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend for these guys. I just know it. Huh?
Yeah. And classic CSSHL schedule all over the place with the start times. 8 p.m. game on the 4th, a 1:30 p.m. game on the 5th, and then to end things off, a 9 a.m. game. So A little
Well,
bit,
they do us a favor on that Sunday morning, and
yeah.
we're
Gotta
always
get
playing
home.
that first game in the morning. That's a travel day for us, and so we're the furthest team away from all of these games,
Yeah.
and so they give us that first game in the morning so that we can get on the road and get halfway home, so that the next day after the Monday when we're still traveling, and they're all at home. We're still traveling another 10 hours, but we get home and so the kids get an extra school day off, except they get study hall on the bus. So there you go.
Well, that's good insight. I remember you saying that last year as well. The U15 is looking to continue to make their mark coming up next week. Back with Gordie Tumilson here on the Buffaloes podcast, talking about the U18 female prep Buffaloes who were in action in Penticton, British Columbia. Um, two close games for them. Gordie, a game that got away from them in that 6-0 loss to Okanagan Hockey Academy on the Saturday. But this team having a chance to get out to Penticton, BC, seeing some beautiful sights, and getting to play some more games with each other. The consensus from this past weekend with this team, how it went.
Oh, the third game was probably the second and third periods were probably the best two periods I've seen them play all season. So their game is coming. We played a team that was kind of equal to us, and we took it to them in the second and third periods. We didn't have it in the first period for some reason, and it looked like it, but I don't know what the coaches Ryan Carls or Kurt Fortney said, but it got them going, and they came out and just took the game right to the other squad. Unfortunately, we just couldn't put the puck behind the big goalie, but nonetheless, it was a great. The 6-0 game was against a powerhouse team. So
Yeah.
we'll just put that aside and go. That's what the best looks like. Measure yourself. Can you get that good? Because that's what you're going to have to be if you want to go to college and you want to go to these other places that you want to go to. The 5-4 loss was a tough one. Lots of goals, not much defense on each team. Goalies were both pretty good. Maybe a weak goal here and there, but nothing too terrible. So it was a girls' hockey game, and that's the best way to describe it. It was back and forth, lots of excitement, and we came up one short.
Coming off of that 6-0 loss against a really good team, losing in a close one to end off the weekend, I feel like that's huge in itself, being able to come back the next game and at least keep it close and having a fighter's chance to win in that one. But what does that speak to? I think we've talked about it so much already, but the belief of this group knowing that, hey, we got knocked down, we can come right back up and make things interesting.
Yeah, well, I don't think they know they've got the belief. That's the problem. The kids go out and play. And you've got to remember, we're a month into the season, and they got 20 kids on the team, and they're meeting all kinds of new people from all kinds of new places.
Right.
So and so that's not easy. And there's a school, and there's all the other things. And so, I was thinking about this the other day. Here's kids coming from all over the place, all over the world, literally at our place, and they come there and they put this uniform on. I call it a sweater because that's what we used to call it in the olden days. They put this uniform on, and somehow they need to gel and bind together sort of magically. Well, that doesn't happen magically just because you got a different crest on you've played for somebody else before. Now you wore red or blue or green. Now you're wearing this black and yellow thing, and off you go, and you got a buffalo on your chest, and you're going to go play, and you got to pull together. How do you do that? Well, the second and third periods of that third game, our kids pulled together. They stepped up and said, okay, this is what we got to do to be a better team. It just looked like two different teams from the first period to the second period. It wasn't even close. Our guys were just amazing in the second and third period. We just didn't score. But beside that, they were really good. So I think they figured that out, that they can do this, but they got to pull together and do all the stuff that coaches work on. And I think they proved them to themselves. So did the U15 kids against the rink. Same deal. When you come back from a game and you're down and you pull together, you find that little, and that takes you a long way later on in the season, for sure.
No doubt about it. And I mean, nice to hear about what a turnaround that was from first to second period. Like you said, night and day basically the way that team looked. But leading up to this, I mean, they had a strong weekend out in Portage. Close games this past weekend. They go up against Edge School as well as the South Alberta Hockey School this upcoming weekend. Two tough opponents on paper, but both are going to be home games. How huge is that for this team who has only played one game, and that was in the preseason Blackjack Stewart Arena, back against the Hawks on the 14th?
Well, home should be a benefit, right? I mean, we all think that. I mean, there's not 20,000 people in the stands, so you don't get a lot of jam from that. But we'll have some other kids there. Some of our players will be there from the U18 guys. I think they're not going anywhere this weekend. So whatever that is, I mean, they're going to be around. People are going to be around. So we sleep in our own beds. That's a good thing. Everything should be timed right, and the other team should be maybe a little leg weary. You got to take advantage of that. Now we're playing against two really good teams, so that balances everything out. Take advantage of something at the beginning of the game because it's going to be a battle right through the game. Our goalies are going to be tested; they've got to be sharp, and they have been pretty sharp. So we should be, it should be two good games. Hopefully, we can sneak a win, and maybe even two. One never knows. Kids hockey is it's all over the place. So maybe we can get a couple of wins. I know the coaches think they can. So hopefully the players do too.
The emotions in the amateur game especially play such a huge role in it. I mean, there's emotions in every level of sports, but of course the pros, they know how to compose themselves in those moments. Kids, it's a bit different sometimes. So it's about who can do that, and exciting to see who will step up to the table and bring that type of poise and leadership to this Pilot Mound U18 Prep Buffaloes team, this female Prep Buffaloes squad this year, Gordie. The U18 male squad, we're going to talk about them next week. We're going to leave them for next week since they only play one game against the St. Paul's Crusaders coming up. We'll recap that one and preview more games coming up with Gordie on episode 5 next Wednesday. Until then, Gordie, thanks again as always for joining me.
Great, Graham. Thank you very much.
Gordie Tumilson joining this edition of the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy podcast, the Buffaloes podcast, for episode 4, season 2. Here brought to you by McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Goaltenders, Can Central Sports Cards, and Memorabilia, as well as Terrico. As for the upcoming schedule this week, 4 teams around the academy. The U15s, they'll be in action coming up on Friday against OHA Edmonton, against Northern Alberta Extreme coming up on 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, and then finishing off the 9 a.m. game against the Edge School at Duncan McNeil Arena. All games will be at Duncan McNeil Arena. It's the CSSHL regular season starting to get going for the U15s. For the U18 male prep Buffaloes, they'll be taking on the Rink Hockey Academy team from Winnipeg, in Winnipeg at the Rink Training Center. They'll end off their weekend of action against the St. Paul's Crusaders. I believe it's their A team, a team that ended up winning the Winnipeg High School Hockey League Platinum Promotions Championship last year. That one goes at 4:30 p.m. Blackjack Stewart Arena is the location, and you can watch Saturday's game on YouTube. Stream won't be available on the Wednesday, they're saying. As for the female U18 Prep Buffaloes, they're in action on Friday and on Saturday, taking on the South Alberta Hockey Club on Saturday and the Edge School on Friday night. Both games at home at Blackjack Stewart Arena. Be sure to check it out on YouTube. As Pilot Mound Hockey Academy's 10th anniversary season keeps itself rolling, that is. We'll be joined by players on next week's episode from the Academy. We'll recap all of these games that have happened and all the games coming up with Gordie Tumilson, and we may even hear from some coaches next week as well. But we're going to take another transition, and I'll be back for some final words on the shorter edition of the Buffaloes podcast here for episode 4 in season 2. Welcome back to the Buffaloes podcast, everybody. Gordie Tumilson joined this edition of the show as today's only guest. As mentioned, we'll have more guests for you coming up next week on the show. But yeah, this is essentially going to mark the end of episode 4, season 2 of the Buffaloes podcast. Been presented by, as it has been all season long so far, in Can Central Sports Cars and Memorabilia, goaltenders, Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, as well as Terrico. Thank you to those 4 brands for continuing to support us, and Pallet Mount Hockey Academy Hockey here on the network. Thank you to you, the viewer, for tuning in on this Wednesday morning or whenever else you may be watching this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads of content like this. As mentioned, episode number 5 of season 2 of the Buffs podcast comes out next Wednesday. Back to our original scheduled programming time at 8 a.m. Yeah, I couldn't even input the intro today to this podcast, so there will be no March of the Buffalo. But yeah, it's a crazy week for us coming up here. As it continues, we're going to be at the Hockey for All Center tonight to broadcast the MFHL season opener. Then we got 3 Manitoba Major Junior Hockey Leagues on tap, one on Thursday night, Friday night, and Sunday afternoon, and then another Manitoba Female Hockey League game on Saturday. So yeah, we'll be all over the place. We'll be busy, and we'll continue to deliver you top end coverage on the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy Buffaloes, all their 4 programs, continuing into next week, and so forth. But as for myself, Graham the G Show Forsyth, we're going to send you off, Buffaloes Nation, with a salute, a wave goodbye, saying so long, myself, Graham the G Show Forsyth, on this Wednesday, 1st October podcast for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy this year. So very exciting. Enjoy the beginning of the month, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Have a great weekend, and enjoy all the great hockey coming your way. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.